For today's lesson, let's continue talking about overlapping. Overlapping, if you remember from last lesson, is when we put one thing in front of another. The example I used was two fruits, remember? An apple and an orange. The fruit that was in the front covered a part of the fruit that was in the back. When we draw like this, when we create an artwork where one object is in front of the other and it covers the other thing that's in the back, it creates the illusion of depth. Depth means things look closer to us or things can look further away. Overlapping is one of the easiest ways that we can create the illusion of depth in our artwork, to make some things look closer and make other things look further away. In the examples that we saw after my apple and my orange, we saw several bowls of fruit where, for example, if you remember correctly, there were grapes covering bananas. Remember the bananas? The grapes in the front were covering parts of the banana. They were overlapping, making the banana look like it was behind the grapes. We also saw some examples in artwork. We saw that really nice artwork that was themed after Mario. Remember? The table that had the mushrooms, it had the shell, it had the gold coins, and things were overlapping. Some things were covering other things. When an artist creates an artwork inside on a table and puts things on top of a table, sometimes fruit, sometimes vegetables, sometimes flowers, sometimes shoes, that's called a still life painting. Still life paintings are simply ways to practice. An artist will put some objects on a table and then take their time to draw the objects. Now, when an artist draws a still life painting, an artist is paying very close attention to overlapping. What things are in front and what parts of the still life are in the back. The things that are in the front, the artist draws or colors completely. The things that are in the back, the artist only has to color or draw the part that they see. The part that's covered by another thing, they don't have to draw that because that's being overlapped by the thing in the front. Now, yes, we did see several examples of fruit and objects on tables. But did you know that overlapping doesn't just happen inside the house? Overlapping is everywhere. When objects are in front of other objects, they're overlapping, especially when we go outside. When we go outside and we look around in nature and we look around in the world that's out there, whether we're in the city or in a park or at the beach or we're traveling, we see overlapping all of the time. Let me give you an example. You're driving down the street with your parents and you're sitting in the car. You look outside and there's traffic, right? Traffic means that there are many cars on the street. When you look through the window, can you see every single car? No, right? Because some cars are in front of you and there are other cars in front of them and then there's other cars in front of those cars. And you can see a lot of them, but they cover each other, right? The cars that you can see completely or almost 100% are the cars closest to you. But the cars further away from you are being overlapped by those cars that are behind them. When we go to the park and we look at the trees overlap the sky, right? When we look at the sky, we see that some green trees are in front of the sky. And when we look at the sky, we also see clouds, right? And clouds overlap the blue of the sky. And sometimes clouds overlap clouds. Another thing happens when there's an airplane that passes in front of a cloud. Wow! Another thing happens also is at night. Another type of overlapping. Have you ever looked at the moon at night? And you're looking at the moon and all of a sudden a cloud gets in front of the moon? The cloud is now overlapping the moon. This is happening all of the time. And if you want to be a good artist, you have to pay attention to overlapping. You have to make things cover other things, especially if you are making a drawing or a painting or coloring something that's outside. Let's take a look at some examples, not just in nature, but in art, of examples of overlapping. After we look at the examples, we're going to create today's art project. I like today's art project a lot. I think it's a lot of fun. So please stick around and pay attention to the examples first so that you can learn about them and maybe use them in your own artwork. And then when we start that art project, oh man, you're going to have so much fun. Please watch the video, pay attention, learn about overlapping, and stick around for the project. Let's go take a look at some examples first. The first picture that we're going to look at is a scene from a city. It's a pretty easy scene to understand, right? This is a lady walking down the sidewalk. We see a building, we see the street, we see a telephone booth. This city is London. This London picture I chose it because I thought it was very simple to see where the overlapping is. For example, we can see, obviously, that the lady is overlapping the wall, the window, right? But if you look at her, you can see that her yellow purse or bag, I can't tell what that is, I think it's a purse, is overlapping her body. Her phone is overlapping her face. We cannot see what's on the other side of the bag, and we cannot see what's on the other side of the phone because they are covering that part. We also can see an obvious overlapping in the telephone booth. Now, those of you who have never seen a telephone booth, this is something that's kind of old, right? It's like a telephone that's out in the city. You put money in, and you can make a phone call. We don't need this anymore because we all have cell phones. But London has kept their telephone booths as a historic thing that's part of the city, that's part of their culture. And you can see it there. That red telephone booth only exists in London. When you see one, you know you are in London. You are in England, Great Britain. And you can see that the telephone booth overlaps, covers a part of the building. Other examples are the lamp post. You see the lamp post, black and white? That's overlapping a part of the building. And the building is overlapping that gentleman who's sitting over there. You can see some feet, right? That is also an example of overlapping. Let's go on to the next picture. The next picture is a place I know you recognize, right? Yeah, Miami Beach. Miami Beach. What a beautiful place we live in, right? Look at the color of the sky. That is a very rare color to see. Not all cities have such a beautiful pink sky when the sun sets. What are some examples of overlapping here? Well, let's just take the obvious one. The palm trees. Well, actually, these are not palm trees. These are coconut trees, coconut palms. There's coconuts up there. And these palms, these coconut palms, are overlapping the buildings. Do you see how they cover the buildings and the sky? Because they are overlapping, right? You can't see what's behind them. I mean, I know it's a skinny little trunk, but what's behind them, behind the palm fronds, the fronds are the leaves, those things that they are covering, make them look like they are closer to us. Let's take a look at another example. But let's travel to another faraway place. Let's go to Tokyo. Let's go to Japan, the land of the rising sun. And this picture that you're looking at is a view of Mount Fuji. Mount Fuji is that mountain volcano that's back there in the distance. You see that? That is a dormant volcano. Dormant means it's asleep. It is not erupting, it is not active, but it is a volcano, and it's a mountain too, right? It's called Mount Fuji. And in Japan, it is called Fujisan. Fujisan. Fujisan means Mr. Fuji. Some people worship him, it. They believe it grants them certain protections and things like that. And they worship Mount Fuji. Some people do, not everybody. But that's why they call him Mr. Fuji. It's Fujisan. And you can see, right? You can see him far away, far, far, far away. But what I want you to look at is the temple, the pagoda. You see that, the building with the 4 levels of roofs. Right? There's another one at the bottom, 5, right? That is a temple, and it is overlapping, right, the city that you see at the bottom, and it's overlapping part of Mount Fuji. It's in front of that, right? It's not next to Mount Fuji, it is in front of it, as far as we are concerned as viewers, right? We can see that some of the trees that are below are covering our view of the city. Those are cherry blossom trees, and when the cherry blossom trees let the flowers grow, they're beautiful. They're like white. They look like snow themselves. They're fantastic. But right now in this view, in this picture, they are not blooming. They are not blooming. But I want you to look at another example of overlapping, and those are the trees at the top of the picture. Do you see the trees at the top of the picture? Those trees are overlapping the sky. So they are closer to us than the sky. They are in front of the sky, right? But notice that they also do not overlap the temple, the pagoda. They are not touching it, so they are not overlapping the temple. Now let's get crazy with the next picture. Let's travel to Tokyo itself, and let's look at a crazy example of overlapping. My God, if I had to paint or draw this picture, I would go crazy because it's just impossible, right? There is so many things that are overlapping here. For example, let's start with the man, right? The gentleman that's walking towards us, he's overlapping a part of that truck. But the truck is also overlapping signs and stores that are in front of it. Look at the signs, how one sign is in front of another, is in front of another. The lamps are overlapping parts of the building. Now, do you see far, far away, behind all those buildings, there's another big building that looks like an apartment building? That apartment building is being overlapped by the buildings in the front. All of this overlapping gives our eyes and our minds the idea that we are standing here and those things are far away from us, just because we put one thing in front of another. Isn't that incredible? All right, so now that we've seen some examples around the planet, let us take a look at an example of artwork that exists. Art that has been made by artists. Let's take a look at the first one. The first one's the most famous painting, I think, on the planet, and that is Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. I knew you knew it, right? You knew it because we've learned about Leonardo. And there she is, the Mona Lisa. And can you discover what is overlapping in this picture? If you said Mona Lisa is overlapping the background, you're correct. That's right. Look at her whole body, her head, her arms, her shoulders. She is in front of that whole background, the mountains and the rivers and the lakes and everything that's back there. She's in front of it. But there is another example of overlapping. That's not just the background and Mona Lisa, which you're correct. That is the main example of overlapping, because we cannot see what is right behind her. We can see parts of it, but we can't see what's behind her head, for example. But how about her hands? Do you see how one hand is overlapping the other? Leonardo didn't just sit her down with both her hands separate. No, he said, let's make her look more natural. Let's make her look like she's crossing her hands. And look at that great example of overlapping. Let's take a look at another example. And this is another great artist, Georges Seurat. This is called Bathers in Asnières. And in this painting, we can see great examples of overlapping. Can you see the little dog overlapping the man that's laying on the grass? What about the one that's on top of the man? You see on top of his hat? You can see he's covering a part of the other man that's behind him in white. The sailboats, they're covering part of the water. They're covering part of the bridge. Notice the young man that's like half on the grass and half in the water. He's overlapping a lot of the water, and he's also overlapping parts of the buildings that are in the background. There's some incredible examples of overlapping. Imagine if he would have not overlapped anything. It wouldn't have looked very natural, right? But the fact that some things are in front of others make this artwork the beautiful thing that it is, among other things, right? The way he used colors and he used a lot of white to make it glow. Now, I want to travel to one more place. Now this last picture, we are going to go far, far away. We are going to travel to the moon. Yes, let's go to the moon. Look at that. That is a picture taken by an astronaut. Now, this is two pictures taken by astronauts. I have seen them both, and they have been, somebody took Photoshop and put the Earth behind this, right? Because the Earth, even though we can see the Earth from the moon if we were there, it would not look like that. This was the power of Photoshop, right? But it's still impressive, I think. We can see the moon overlapping the planet Earth. But we can also see the moon buggy. You see that little moon buggy? That's a little car the astronauts took to space, to the moon, and they would drive around the moon in that little thing, right? So they didn't have to walk everywhere they wanted to go. But the moon is the main overlapping agent here, right? It's overlapping the whole planet Earth. But when we look at the planet Earth, we see some overlapping there, right? Can you discover what is being overlapped? Take a minute. I'll give you a minute. Think about it. Look at the planet Earth, and there's a lot of overlapping happening there. What do you think it is? If you said the clouds overlapping the water and the land, guess what? You are correct. There is overlapping there. Now let's take this picture and let's use it as an inspiration, as an idea for the art project that we're going to create. Okay, so let me show you what you're going to need. Let's pop over to the project. Let's go to the table, and let's get started on our creativity. So now it's time to start our art project. Every time I say that, it's funny, right? Like our art project. But it's time to start our project, which is an art project. So what do we need? I've already put it here so you can see it. We're going to need a pencil with an eraser. I like my topper one, but sometimes I use, the big one, right? If I think I'm going to need to do a lot of erasing. For this one, I don't think I'm going to need to do a lot of erasing, but just in case I have a bigger eraser. I'm going to need scissors. Yes, please, you're going to need some scissors for this one, okay? If you don't have scissors, it's okay. You can probably get away without some scissors, and I'll show you how. Okay, but if you do have them, that would be ideal. I'm going to put the scissors aside. And your trusty crayons. As you know, I've been using these crayons for a while now, so they're kind of, used. And they're still working, right? I still like them. They are crusty, but they are trusty. That means they work for me. So I'm going to keep using these guys. I don't need a new box every time I make art. I use these guys. I'm going to put them aside. And last but not least, the most important part, I think, is our paper. Get out a white piece of paper. If you have your notebook and you are working on your notebook, you can still do this project. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Let me get my notebook. This is my notebook. And here you have, right, the projects that we've been working on. Projects I've got. I'm going to move to an empty part of my notebook, and this is what I'm going to do. Here's my first overlapping artwork. So I go to my next page, and I'm going to turn my paper around. Okay, so if you're using a notebook, you're going to use it like this. Okay, this is horizontal. This is vertical. Today we're going to work horizontal. All right. But I'm going to demonstrate on the white paper. I'm going to demonstrate on the white paper because it's much easier. But I'll also show you how to do it here too. Okay, but let's start with the white paper. What's our first step? First step, super easy. We are going to fold our paper. Now, if I were to fold it in half, I would match corners, right? I would take this corner and bring it to these two. But I'm not going to do that. Instead of going all the way, I'm going to go halfway. See, halfway between here and here. I'm going to fold my paper. You see? Already we have an overlapping. And what I am going to create here is an artwork inspired by one of the pictures that we saw. Let me put it here for you, okay? Let's take a look at this picture. I'm going to create artwork using this as my inspiration. Inspiration means the place where I'm getting my idea from. But to get started, we are going to have to do this with a folded paper. Now, I promised those of you who are using the notebook that I would do it on the notebook too. So how would this look like in our notebook? Well, remember I said if you're going to fold it all, if you're going to fold it, you're not going to fold it all the way to the top. No, 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 no. Bring it about halfway and then fold your paper. Okay, so it looks like this. You're not all the way. You're not folding it halfway. You're folding it, I would call this a third of the way, approximately. A third. If you were to cut your paper into 3 parts, that's where you would fold it. Okay? So you see it? I'm going to leave it there for a second for you to do it. If you fold it wrong, let's say you fold it really small, like this. It's not the end of the world. Do not freak out. If you fold it all the way, it's not the end of the world. Don't freak out. Just bring it back and fold it the right way. Okay? Fold it about here. You see it? Once you've got it here, I'm going to show you what we're going to draw. Now, the picture that we saw, the one that I'm going to use as my inspiration, is a scene of the moon. It is the moon. As if we were astronauts standing on the moon. And we were looking out into space as an astronaut. Okay? So the moon is going to be this thing right here. This paper, this part of the paper is going to be the moon. Okay? So folding it, I want you to start maybe around here and draw a bumpy half circle more or less. Okay? So it's kind of like a little bit the moon, right? You can even do a little bit here too. Like if there was another mountain in the moon. You see that? Okay, now, what are those things that are on the moon's surface that are round? Well, those things are craters. And craters are the places where little asteroids or little comets or little pieces of rock have hit the moon's surface. And when they land really hard and they create like a big round hole. And that's what we're going to do. Now, I don't know if you've seen in pictures of the moon, some of the holes are big and some are small. So I'm going to do them randomly. Some small ones, some big ones. Notice I'm doing ovals. I am not drawing circles. If I was looking straight down at the moon, it would look like a circle. But I am imagining that I am standing at the moon and I'm looking across to the other side. So they look like ovals. So draw yourself some ovals. And I'm drawing one here. Do you see this one here? This one is not complete. So if I were to draw this one complete, right, it would look like this. But I'm only seeing a piece of it, right? And this one's sticking out from half of the paper. And I want to draw the top of one here. And another one here. And a couple of little ones, because as you go further away, they get smaller. As they come closer, they are bigger. Right? You see that? And over here, on this piece, I'm going to draw a few. Over here, I'm going to draw a couple more. Do you see that? Those are my craters that are on the moon. Now, what else can I draw on the moon? Well, when the astronauts first went to the moon, they took a flag. I don't know if you know this, but they took a flag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a flag right here. I'm going to draw the shape of a flag. Right? Put a little circle on it. You can draw whatever you want on the flag. Now, I am going to stop on doing the moon. Okay? I'm going to stop doing the moon. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to color the moon. What color can we use for the moon? Well, I'm going to use two colors. I'm going to use black and gray. Here's my black. And I'm going to grab a little bit of white. Where's my white? So let's get to coloring. Before I color gray, I'm going to trace all my lines black. I know what you're thinking. Mr. G, you always trace last. Yes, I know. But I'm afraid that if I color gray first, it might make my pencil lines invisible. And I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to trace all my lines first. All of them. Tracing, tracing, tracing. So trace all of your craters, your moon craters first. Here's your moon. I'm going to draw the flagpole. Color in the flag later. I'll let you pick whatever flag you want to put there. I'm going to leave mine blank. You put the flag you want. Okay, now that I've traced all my lines, I'm going to color with my gray. Now, I'm going to color using my back and forth stroke. Back and forth. Back and forth, back and forth. The moon is gray. It's full of moon rocks and sand and dirt from the moon. Now, if you want to see moon stuff, you are in luck because we live in the state of Florida. And in the state of Florida is a city called Cocoa Beach. And in Cocoa Beach, which is about 5 hours from here, there is a place called Cape Canaveral. And in Cape Canaveral is where the rockets shoot off into space. And that's where the rockets shot off to go to the moon. And in Cape Canaveral, there is the NASA station where we can go and visit. And you can go see rockets, you can see the space shuttle, you can see moon rocks, you can see the suits the astronauts wore, you can meet astronauts. It's really cool. I recommend if you ever have a chance and your mom asks you, hey, do you want to go to Disney? Do you want to go to Universal? And if you've been to those places before and you want to go to a new place, I recommend that you visit NASA. It's only about 5 hours drive. And you will see amazing things there. Highly recommended. Now, I finished coloring the moon, but to make the craters more interesting, I'm going to darken them up with my gray. What am I doing? Well, I'm just pressing a little harder. Do you see when I press a little harder on the gray, the moon craters look different than the moon surface? Because it's just shadow, right? It's creating like the shadow of a hole. All right. Now, I'm going to take yellow. Where's my yellow? And I'm going to color the pole, but I'm going to leave my flag. You know what? I want to make my flag Yes. You make it whatever color you want. All right. Now, Mr. G, I don't get where's the overlapping lesson? Give me a minute. I'm going to show you. What you're going to do now is you're going to take your trusty scissor, okay? And you're going to open your paper and you are going to cut the line that's not colored away. So let's start cutting away this part. So follow the line of the moon. Follow the line of the moon. I have the flag here, so I'm going to cut it. Take your time. Take your time. Do this right. You don't want to cut something off. I mean, if you cut something off that you're not supposed to, it's no big deal because in the end, you can always glue paper back, right? But if you could do it right the first time, that'd be ideal. That would be perfect. So go ahead and cut that. And I've got a little piece here. Do you see this little piece? I'm going to cut this piece. Yours is going to be different. Yours is going to be different. Just be aware that you've got to cut that part out. Okay? Now, do you see what's happening? Let me put these scraps aside. Now when I fold my paper, the moon is going to be in front of whatever I draw here. Okay, so what I'm going to draw now is the planet Earth. I'm going to draw the Earth. Do you see that? Is it a perfect circle? No. Is the Earth a perfect circle? Well, the Earth is a sphere, really, but yeah, I'd say the Earth is pretty perfect, right? Now I'm going to draw some shapes that are going to represent the planet's continents. Okay, the land and the water. But if you notice, part of the ones that I colored, that I drew, are being overlapped, right? We can't see them. Do we have to color them? No, we don't have to color them because we're not going to see them. But I draw them just so that I know, hey, the Earth is back there. Now, we also have to think about clouds. So notice these shapes that I'm making here. And some of these shapes, I don't know if you notice, are overlapping other shapes. The clouds are going to cover the water, and the clouds are going to cover parts of the land. And every time you look at the Earth, you're going to see a lot of clouds. I know a lot of people just color the Earth blue and brown, but it's not like that. There's a lot of white on the Earth. Okay, so if this is a cloud, and the bottom part is the Earth, the land part, I'm going to erase this line. Because that line is going to, that cloud is going to overlap the land. So I can't see it. You see, overlapping is about hiding the things that are in the back. Alright, that's the Earth. You see it? Now, there are other things I can draw in space, right? For example, stars. I can start drawing little circles. You draw yourself some stars. Put some down here. Even if you think it's going to overlap, it's okay. Just leave it down there. What else can I draw? Well, I can draw the sun. I can draw the sun being overlapped by the Earth. I can draw the sun behind the Earth. Do you see it there? I mean, if I drew the whole circle, it'd be like this, but that part's going to be overlapped, right? The Earth is going to be covering the sun. That half circle is going to be the sun overlapped by the Earth. I can also draw a satellite. Do you know what a satellite is? Satellites are these devices that are circling the planet. And they communicate with us here on Earth, and they transmit signals, right? And they have antennas. And they have these panels that collect the energy of the sun. And they use that for energy. I can also draw a rocket. I can draw a rocket. that is flying in space. I mean, you can do a super cool rocket, or you could do a simple one like mine. It's up to you. Because the rocket is in front of the Earth, it's closer to us, I'm going to erase the parts of the Earth that it would cover. You see? When I put the moon over it, the rocket is behind the moon. Wow, do you see all the overlapping that's happening? Now, if you want to get fancy, you can even draw another planet over here. We can only see a part of this planet. I'm going to make this planet, even though in reality it wouldn't be here, but I'm going to make this look like, let me see, I don't know, can you guess what planet has a big circle, a big storm? Does anybody know what planet that is? If you said Jupiter, you are correct. Now, if you want to make an astronaut, you can make an astronaut. If you want to make a flying saucer, you can make a flying saucer. If you want to make a dog in a spacesuit, you can make a dog in a spacesuit. I'm just going to draw a flying saucer. A flying saucer that's right here overlapping the Earth. Because remember, I could draw it here in an empty spot, but the key is to try overlapping, right? So I draw the shape of the UFO. I'm going to keep it simple. This is going to be a UFO from the movies of the 50s, right? When people thought that Martians were going to invade the Earth and kill all humans, destroy all humans. We discovered that is not true. We do not need Martians for that. Okay. So, there's my spaceship. And I took the moon away to give me space to do it. But look, once I put the moon, I won't be able to see much of it. But that's okay, because that's part of it. You know what? I'm also interested in making an asteroid. An asteroid is like a big chunk of rock that's floating in space. Oh, I've got another thing I want to make. I forgot. Almost forgot. I want to make a comet. A comet is a huge asteroid, and it's releasing all this ice and stuff that's coming off of it, and we could see it from far away sometimes. There's a famous one called Halley's Comet. Look at all the things that are going to be out in my space. All right. Now, I am going to start coloring the Earth. I am not going to color anything else. I'm only going to color the Earth, because if I spend my whole time talking, you are not going to be able to do your work. So, real quickly, the Earth. I'm going to get a little bit of brown, orange. You know where the land is, right? That's where I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a little bit of orange, just a little bit. I'm going to go to all my lands. A little bit of orange. Notice I'm not coloring it very hard. I'm also not coloring in the areas where I have my clouds. Just a little bit of orange. There's a little bit of land back here. I know, Mr. G, this part you're not going to see. That's okay. That's okay. I like to color it too. I'm going to put a little bit of yellow around the edges. Okay, because, you know, around the edges, there's a little bit of beach, right? Just a little bit of orange. Just a little bit. And then I'm going to get my green. Actually, you know what? Brown first, then green. Then put a little bit of brown. I'm doing the land first. Then I'll do the water. Okay, so I know what you're thinking, Mr. G. You're making all of the land into desert. That is not accurate. That is not true. It is not like that. And you're right, it's not. That's why I'm going to add some greens, right? I'm going to add some greens to my planet Earth. Right? You could do it in whatever order you like. I just chose this order because it's the kind of order I liked. But you can get creative and you can experiment. Okay, those are my land masses, right? And now I'm going to get my blue. Let me see, I have cerulean, and I have just regular blue, indigo. Let me turn my light so you can see it better. Okay, let me see, do I have any other blues? Oh yes, yes, remember my blue-green. I like my blue-green, so I'm going to start off with blue-green. Yeah, I'm going to do blue-green around the continents. The beautiful beaches, right? Blue-green. No, I gotta be careful because there are some clouds around there and I don't want to color the clouds. Don't color your clouds, leave them white. Leave your clouds nice and white. And because cerulean is the big one, I'm going to use cerulean. I could still use my indigo, but I'm going to try cerulean. Let me practice back here. Oh, that's nice. That's not a bad color. Okay, so I'm going to do a little cerulean. But I think I'm still going to go with a little dark blue. A little bit of that indigo for the middle of the ocean. You know, the middle of the ocean is very dark blue. When you're sailing in the middle of the ocean, you're going to notice. Sailing doesn't mean you have to have a sailboat. I mean, sailing means you're on a ship, right? If you're ever on a big ship in the middle of the ocean, you will notice that the water is very, very dark. And that is due to the incredible depth. It's very, very deep. Scientists have discovered that the ocean is deeper than the tallest mountains on the planet. Isn't that incredible? Yes, that is unbelievable that there is such depth in the ocean. So you're seeing how I'm mixing my colors just for the earth. The earth is very important, of course. We're going to put a lot of colors, a lot of nice colors on our fantastic planet. And to finish it off, to make it look awesome, you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my black and I'm going to trace. First, I'm going to trace the clouds, right? I'm going to make sure the clouds have their say here. There's my cloud. Then I'm going to trace around here. See, there's a little cloud there, a big cloud there, another cloud there. And now that I'm finished with the clouds, I'm going to start doing the continents. I'm not touching the rocket because I'm going to do the rocket later. Okay, so there's my planet Earth, right? And I did color the part that gets overlapped, but I thought it was cool to do it. I thought it was nice. Now, I'm going to go to each one of these things. As a matter of fact, since we're here together, let me do my sun. My sun with a little bit of orange. Mix a little orange into that sun. And blend it in there with the yellow. Because you know what, right? The sun's on fire. And then I'm going to trace my sun in case anybody asks. What's that? That's the sun. I'm going to leave the rest of this for you to do on your own. Okay? Because I want you to do it. So get to this part. Continue to add things to your artwork. And then color it. There's a couple of things I want you to know. Number one, you can leave the stars white if you want. You can trace them first. You can color them. You can make them different shapes if you want. You can also give space different colors. When we look at pictures of space, we notice that it's not just black. You can add blue to it. You can add purples. Those colors go very well when you try to make art of space. Halley's Comet, or this comet that I'm doing, I will leave with streaks of very light blue and gray flying through the sky. The satellite, you can do any color. If you've got a UFO, also make it any color you want if you have it. Rockets, get creative. Leave them white if you want. But, you know, put some highlights, some interesting colors. Okay? Just have fun with it. Just have fun and experiment. And then the main overlapping, of course, is the moon. Because the moon is the closest thing to us, right? And we're using a little trick, right? We're using the paper. We're using the paper to do our overlapping. It's like our cheating overlapping. But we've also done overlapping here, and in the clouds, and in the UFO, and in the satellite, and the Earth, and the sun. I can't wait to see what you do, okay? So I want you to show me when we get to school, and we work together. I want you to show me your masterpieces. And again, you can use this project and do other things. It doesn't have to be the moon and the space. But for now, do moon and space. But there are other things you can experiment with, as long as you have fun. Okay. I'm going to leave this like this so that you can see it, and we can take a picture of it, and we can look at it. As a matter of fact, I'll open it like this so you can see it too. You can pause it. You can pause it and take a look and copy these parts. Or I can close it and you can pause it now and you can take a look at it. And you can copy the parts that you think are useful for your artwork. Most important part, guys, have fun. Have fun. And try to do your overlapping. All right? Till next time. Enjoy your art. Be safe and have a good day.